Nobody in the operations tent expected the young woman to speak, let alone silence an entire room of hardened soldiers. The general's voice thundered as he demanded her call sign. She stood tall, calm, steady as stone. When she finally answered, the air seemed to stop moving. "Specter 6, she said. And just like that, every man in the room froze. Some lowered their eyes, others stopped breathing. Because the name they heard wasn't just a call sign. It was a legend they all feared, respected, and never thought they'd meet face to face. The woman nobody expected. The briefing tent buzzed with noise, maps, screens, and scattered gear marked the chaos of an operation about to begin. Soldiers whispered, traded rumors, speculated about the new specialist who had been assigned last minute. She looked too young, too calm, too quiet for the mission they were facing. Many believed she was a clerical mistake or someone sent by command to observe. Nothing more. But from the moment she stepped into the tent, there was something utterly unshakable about her presence. She didn't look around nervously. She didn't try to impress. She simply walked to her place, stood straight, and waited. As if she had been here 1,000 times before. General Rowden, a man known for his cold discipline, slammed his hand onto the table. The room fell silent, his eyes locked onto her. "Name," she answered politely. "Sergeant Lena Torres." The general narrowed his eyes, unimpressed. "Not your name. Your call sign. The one you were assigned on your last classified deployment." The soldiers leaned in, some smirking, expecting her to stumble or hesitate. But Lena didn't. She wasn't afraid of him. She wasn't afraid of anyone in the room. What she feared was the memory of the things she'd survived. Things these men didn't know she had endured. But she stayed silent. The general grew impatient. "Your call sign." "Sergeant, what do they call you out there?" His voice rose with authority, but what Lena carried inside her was heavier than his anger. She had lived in the shadows of missions that were never recorded, operations that saved lives but erased her existence. Her team had been her family. Until the day she lost them, every member, one by one. On a mission she wasn't even supposed to return from. Ever since, she avoided saying the name that once defined her. The name that now haunted her. But leadership demanded an answer. Everyone stared. The tension thickened like smoke. She took a slow breath as memories flooded back. Gunfire, darkness. The feeling of running alone through enemy territory with a damaged radio and a bleeding shoulder. And the final whisper her commander had given her before he died in her arms. "You're our Spectre. The ghost that never gets caught." The general repeated the question. Louder, stronger. But Lena didn't flinch. She lifted her chin, letting the weight of her past settle firmly into her voice. "Specter 6, she said calmly. And the room immediately changed. The whispers died. Smirks vanished. Eyes widened. Even the general stepped back half a step. Because they all knew what that call sign meant. Specter 6 wasn't a nickname. It was a myth. A shadow soldier who ran missions so dangerous that only fragments of the stories reached the official record. No one expected this legend to be a quiet woman standing before them. The general's voice softened for the first time. "You're Specter 6. She nodded once. He noticed something else too. Her hands weren't shaking. Her breathing steady. Her eyes firm but full of storms. This was someone shaped by fire, grief, and survival. Not arrogance, not ego. Just truth. Suddenly, the entire room listened. Not because they were ordered to, but because the ghost of impossible missions had just walked into their camp. Why the room went silent from that moment forward, nobody questioned her presence again. The soldiers who previously laughed or whispered now watched her with a mixture of awe and unease. Some had heard the rumor that Specter 6 once extracted an entire hostage team alone. Others whispered she had walked through a battlefield undetected. Most dismissed those stories as exaggerations. But now she stood in front of them, quiet, steady, breathing proof of impossible survival. The general cleared his throat, motioning her toward the strategy board. "Sergeant Torres, since you're here under direct special command, perhaps you can explain why the Pentagon chose you for this operation." He tried to speak confidently, but even he couldn't mask the change in his tone. Respect. Caution. Maybe even fear. Lena stepped forward but didn't brag. She didn't need to. Her voice was steady as she explained the mission outline. Terrain weaknesses, enemy patterns, extraction points. Everything she said came with a clarity only someone with lived experience could offer. Soldiers who moments ago doubted her now hung on to every word, but then her voice shifted. gentler, heavier. She didn't just talk strategy, she talked responsibility. I don't lead with fear, she told them. I lead with memory. The people who trained me aren't here anymore. I fight for the ones who can't return, and I intend to make sure every one of you goes home alive. The room listened in complete silence. Not because they were being briefed, but because they felt understood. Seen. Protected. After the meeting, the general approached her privately. Why come back? He asked. After what happened to your team? She paused, eyes lowering just slightly. Because running from ghosts only gives them more power. Facing them, that's how we honor the people we lost. Her words hit him harder than any salute. For the first time, he realized she wasn't a ghost. She was a survivor fighting her way back into the light. Later that night, as the soldiers prepared their gear, Lena sat alone under the dim tent lamp, touching the old patch she kept hidden, her team's emblem. She whispered their names, one by one, like a prayer. She wasn't Specter Six to be feared. She was Specter Six because she carried the spirits of 5 fallen warriors beside her. When the operation began at dawn, every soldier followed her without hesitation. They no longer saw a newcomer. They saw a leader forged from loss and remade by purpose. Her calm courage spread through the ranks like fire. And as they moved into the darkness ahead, one thing echoed through every soldier's mind. They were walking behind a legend. Not because she was famous, but because she had earned every scar that built her strength. And by the end of that mission, every soldier would understand why the name, Specter Six, brought silence. Not out of fear, but out of respect for the warrior who refused to stay a ghost.